It's December 3rd, 2015, and I'm in Budapest, Hungary. So, San Bernardino, California, just recently the Muslims decided to celebrate Christmas by shooting up and killing and massacring 14 non-believers. This follows the Paris massacre and countless other massacres before that. And there are still people who say that we should allow these Muslims, these people who are very different from us in every sense of the word, culturally, ethnically, into our midst, even though they offer us no value, just problems. Now, I just want us to think a little bit about the psychology of these jihadists, and these people in radical Islam. I mean, radical Islam has deep roots in the Muslim world. It has nothing to do with the fact that the Quran, if you read it for what it says, if you take its words literally, there's plenty of reference and plenty of exhortations in that book to slaying non-believers, to killing non-believers, to taking their women as slaves and lying with these women. I mean, that's a mentality that you have to deal with. Now, Islam is a peculiar religion, and it has traditionally expanded through violence and through intimidation, to the point that it is now one of the major religions, and it is a force to be reckoned with. And it's an interesting state of affairs. Here in this part of the world, we have been fighting Islam for centuries, and we have been dealing with Muslims for centuries, and our dealings with Muslims have been largely not positive. At one point in Hungary's history, the Turks advancing up the banks of the Danube, they took over and destroyed the Kingdom of Hungary, and they massacred the local population. So, this part of the world, this part of the world has long memories, and we're not. Hungary's not Sweden, where this is all new to them, and they don't understand it, and they're caught unawares, and they're naive, and they think that the world is populated by happy little Swedes. It's not like that. The world is not like that, and history, experience teaches you that the world is not like that. But be that as it may, let's focus on the task at hand, and trying to understand the mentality of these Muslims who just go out and just massacre dozens, hundreds of non-believers just because, even if they swim across oceans almost literally, they come here by rubber boats to live amongst us. We don't want them. We never invited them over. These people have nothing to offer us, and yet they insist on wanting to murder us. So let's try to understand the mentality of these Muslim jihadists who, you know, emigrate to lands that are foreign to them, people who are alien to them, and then just decide that, you know, they're just gonna murder them and rape their women, as you know, this happens regularly in Scandinavia and parts of the UK where there are large Muslim populations. Now, Muslims in Europe are typically in the lowest rungs of society. That's where they end up, because, you know, the people who come over from the Middle East, and the rat holes in the Middle East and Arab countries, and, you know, places of that sort. And we got to be blunt about who they are. I mean, they're not artists and engineers and, you know, doctors and anything of that sort. I mean, obviously, you know, when you're talking about large numbers, there will be the exception to the rule, but the rule is that these people are not scientists and engineers or anything of that nature, and so they tend to drift down towards the lower rungs of society, to the point that most of them are unemployed, living off the dole, raising their children on the backs of European men, essentially, or European people, the tax dollars of Europeans. We raise their children, you know, children that are being taught to murder us. We raise them with our money. And I mean, that points to an ingratitude that is somewhat perplexing. So what is going on here? Oftentimes, in the case of terrorism, most of these terrorists, I mean, they're not underprivileged. A lot of the terrorists are actually from the middle class and even upper middle class Muslim families, and yet they vent out their fury on non-believers, on native Europeans, despite the fact that they have not been, at least economically, they have not been deprived. But, you know, obviously the Quran says certain things, but why would you volunteer to follow the textual interpretation of Islam? I mean, there must be some psychological driver that takes you in that direction. A lot of it has to do with humiliation, or the sense of humiliation, and the sense of not being able to conquer, master, influence, control the people around you in ways that you would like. Not being able to possess women that you, or even men that you would want to possess sexually. I mean, there's a lot of frustrations, pent-up frustrations in these jihad warriors. I mean, you know, you're talking about people who are very, very angry and resentful and envious, and take that envy and resentment to a level that is, you know, quite shocking. Why do they volunteer to do this? Now, it's not just piety, obviously. There's something more to it. There's something more going on here. I mean, that level of savagery, that level of violence, I mean, there is an impetus, an emotional impetus behind that. And the fury that these jihad warriors express has to do with the fact that they don't feel respected. They don't feel respected. Perhaps because, objectively, they're not that as human beings, they're just not that great. Muslims are not that great. Arabs are not that great as human beings. In terms of achievement, of any type of achievement, they're right on the bottom. And I suppose that that sense that you cannot bend your will, the world under your will, it shaves certain individuals the wrong way, to the point that they're willing to commit violence acts to vindicate their masculinity, to vindicate their sexuality, to control and possess a world that they were not able to control. A woman, for example, a beautiful European woman, if you cannot control her, possess her, bend her to your will, you can always shoot her or rape her. And that's the mentality that you're dealing with. That's the psychological impetus that you're dealing with. And what should be the response of European society to that, other than fierce resistance? Fierce, bloodthirsty resistance. What other alternative is there other than just talking so bluntly and being so blunt that shivers run down people's spines? There's no other alternative, because if you are a marshmallow in the face of Islam, which is intolerance personified, will possess you, will control you, will dominate you, and will rule over you until you submit.